Hi guys, this is Alex again with Patterns for Pirates. The other method of gathering that I wanted to show you today was gathering with elastic. A lot of people prefer this method. It's not one that I use frequently, but it's a super easy method. Start by, of course, creating your bodice or your sleeve, whatever you need to attach gathers to. In my case, is a bodice. Measure the opening of your bodice button and cut an elastic piece. I like to use either clear elastic or a 1/4 of an inch wide elastic, because this way I can remove it all together when I use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so it doesn't create any bulk in the seam. So measure your bodice opening. I like to lay mine down center front, center back, and just measure. And then cut a piece of elastic that is the same length of your bodice opening plus seam allowance. So in my case, for a 2T was 24 inches, so I cut 24.5 inches, and I just sewn the elastic in a loop with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. If you want to do 1/2 inch, that's fine too. As long as you add whatever seam allowance you're using to the total measurement, it's perfect. So now the loop that I've created, the elastic loop that I've created, has the same length as the bodice opening. So it will fit 1:1 ratio. Next thing you need to do is mark your halfway and your 1/4 points of your elastic. The one point is already marked by the seam that you made. Just fold it and mark the excuse me, the other point, and then match the center front and center back of the elastic to find your side quarters, and just mark them. I use water soluble pen. I find that's the easiest way. You can use tailored chalk or a regular pen. It doesn't matter. It's not, the elastic will not be seen anywhere. And mark on the other side. So now you have your 1/4 points. We've done the same thing to the skirt. You have your side seams already marked, and then we've marked the center front and the center back of your skirt. Now what you need to do is match the elastic to the 1/4 and to the center front and center back and sides of the skirt. So I like to put my elastic seam in the back. You can put it on one side seam. It doesn't really matter. I'm just used to putting it in the back. So match it and pin it. Then I have the side seam, a 1/4 point matched to the side seam. Your clips may not hold. If you put your clip like this, the elastic will wiggle under it. So either use a pin or just clip it so the elastic doesn't move. Then the center matched. Make sure your elastic doesn't fold over or twist. Match the elastic, and then your last point is the last seam. And I like to stick with just these 4 points pinned. I'm not gonna use any extra pins, especially if I'm using skirt for a kid. My case is a size 2T, so I can't say that the opening is too big. If you're doing maybe an adult gather skirt, you might want to stretch the elastic and match some other points too, but this should be enough. Now I'm gonna move you guys to the sewing machine. Excuse me. And for this, we're gonna be using a zigzag stitch to attach the elastic to the skirt. We will be stretching only the elastic, not the skirt, to match the skirt. This method works just as well for wovens and knits. Knits will stretch, so you have to make sure that you're not stretching your skirt you're only stretching your elastic. For wovens it will be a little bit easier. So I'm aligning I have my elastic aligned with this the edge of the skirt, and I'm going to be choosing a zigzag stitch, and I'm using a zigzag stitch that with about 3.6 tension, I like it, and a wide zigzag stitch. Let's do I'm gonna start with 2.5 and see if I like it, and the width should be 3.5 should be fine. Again, you have to play with your machine and see what you like, or also the fabric that you're using, but this should be a good starting point. Alright, so have your presser foot down, and in this case, excuse me while I figure out the lighting. Okay, and in this case you will want to back stitch at the beginning and at the end of your seam, of your gathering stitch. All right, so start by back stitching, and then I like to grab whatever point we marked next and just stretch. With one hand I keep that point because I removed the pins, and with the other hand I make sure that I guide my my fabric to keep the edge aligned with the elastic, because the elastic tends to try to run away from you. See, I think I could go even higher with the length. I'm gonna do a 3.0 length and see if I like it, because this is just to gather, it's not to hold anything. Plus this elastic will be removed or enclosed in the seam once I attach the skirt. I find it goes easier if it's a longer length. Go slowly. It's more important to go slow to keep the quarter points matched and the elastic close to the edge of the skirt. So we're a quarter of the way through. I'm doing the same thing. I'm grabbing the other point, the other clip, and with my other hand guiding the elastic to make sure it stays flushed with the edge of the top edge of the skirt. Alright, when I reach that point, I'm moving to the next one. And now we're halfway through. Super easy. And because we cut an exact size of the elastic as the body's opening, there won't be any additional gathered or loosening of the gathers needed, because everything will match perfectly. And we're on our last quarter. So yeah, I think I like the 3.0 length of the zigzag stitch better. You could even go half a point more, I think. Make sure your elastic doesn't try to get away from the edge. So now it's all set. Everything is gathered nicely and evenly. Now, because I've used regular elastic as opposed to clear elastic, you might, depending on the quality of the elastic you use, you might see that it tries to stretch. So the best way to avoid stretch for the elastic not to recover properly is, of course, using a great quality elastic, or using a clear elastic, or making sure you have your stitches as wide as possible, so the recovery is good. So this is gathered, this is stretched, and now this should all match. I will match the back with the back of the bodice with the part where I sewn my elastic together in a loop, and you will just be attaching it like you normally would. Just sew right sides together, and optionally you can top stitch. Because I've used 1/4 inch seam elastic and the seam allowance is 1/2 inch, if you're using your sewing machine to attach it together, the elastic will be enclosed in the seam. If you're using a serger with the blade on, the elastic will just be cut off by the machine, so it won't create any bulk in the seam. It was useful just to gather. So I hope this method will work for you if you choose to do this one. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.